ocean is the last great unknown on Earth. Even with satellites and submarines, we've only mapped a small part of it, and the little we do know is enough to terrify even the bravest explorers. From glowing seas that stretch farther than the eye can see, to ghost ships that appear without a single soul on board. These stories are very real and prove the ocean is hiding more than we can imagine. Today we're diving into ocean anomalies that terrified explorers. You're looking at a map. You know exactly where the island should be, but when you arrive, it simply isn't there. That is what Spanish explorers discovered in the Gulf of Mexico. For centuries, maps showed an island called Bermeja just off the Yucatan coast. It was even considered important for oil drilling rights in the late 1990s, but when surveyors and naval teams went to find it, the island had vanished. Some believe Bermeja was destroyed by rising seas or an earthquake. Others think it never existed or was a cartographic mistake. But Mexican officials were so unsettled that conspiracy theories spread, suggesting the island might have been deliberately erased to change maritime boundaries. For the sailors who went looking, it was as if the sea had swallowed a whole piece of land. Imagine you sail for weeks to reach an island that everyone claims is there, and when you get there, it's just open ocean. This is the story of Dougherty Island, reported in the extreme South Pacific. In 1851, Captain Dougherty of the James Stewart claimed he saw a new island somewhere between Cape Horn and New Zealand. He described it as 5 to 6 miles long, with a high cliff, a bluff, to its northeast, snow on top. Later, other captains, Keats in 1860, Stannard in 1886, also reported seeing it at roughly similar coordinates. But here is the twist. No one ever landed on it. Later expeditions couldn't find any trace. By the early 20th century, it was more or less declared non-existent. The most likely explanation is fog banks or icebergs, optical illusions, maybe even navigational error. For those early sailors, though, believing land was in front of them only to find endless ocean would be devastating. The hopes of discovery turning into hopeless confusion terrified many who searched in those cold, cruel, lonely seas. Picture sailing at night and suddenly the water around you begins glowing bright blue as if it's on fire. Early explorers in Southeast Asia reported exactly that while passing through the Malacca Strait. This wasn't myth or exaggeration. It was a real natural phenomenon now known as bioluminescence. Massive blooms of tiny plankton release light when disturbed, creating entire seas that appear to glow. For sailors who didn't know the science, it was absolutely horrifying. Some wrote in their logs that the ocean looked alive and seemed to be chasing their ships. Today we understand it's a defensive mechanism of plankton, but to those early crews, fiery waters at night were a bad omen that left them speechless and afraid. In 2016, a team of explorers in the Solomon Islands stumbled across a phenomenon that seemed impossible. The ocean itself was boiling. The spot, called the Cavachi Submarine Volcano, is one of the most active underwater volcanoes in the Pacific. When it erupts, the water literally bubbles and churns with steam, ash, and boiling lava fragments. Divers and researchers described the area as terrifying. Not only were the waters hot and acidic, but large predators like sharks were spotted living inside the hostile crater. The idea of sharks thriving in boiling toxic waters baffled scientists and left explorers shaken. It proved the ocean can host life in places humans could never survive. What if part of the ocean's surface was tens of meters lower than everywhere else, not because there was a depression, but because gravity itself was weaker there? This anomaly was discovered in 1948 by Dutch geophysicist Felix Andreas Venning Mens during gravity surveys at sea. It's called the Indian Ocean Geoid Low. It's a massive circular region southwest of India's tip, covering about 3 million square kilometers, almost the size of India itself. Because gravity is slightly weaker there, if surface effects like tide and currents were removed, the sea level would be up to about 106 meters lower than the global average. Explorers and navigators in earlier times didn't know of this, but such a weird gravitational effects means that mapping, depth estimates, sea level expectations, all could be off. Even now, it makes scientists scratch their heads over Earth's interior. Where did this low-density region come from? Some recent studies suggest it's caused by fragments of ancient ocean floors plus deep mantle dynamics. What if an island emerges from mist once every 7 years only to vanish again, leaving sailors questioning their sanity? Hy-Brasil is the legendary Phantom Island off the west coast of Ireland, appearing in maps from 1325 through the 1800s. The legends described it as a perfect circular island, sometimes with a river running through it. It was said to be shrouded in mist except one day every 7 years when its outline would reveal itself. Sailors claimed to see it, then attempted to approach, but as they got closer, it would disappear. It's not just myth either. It's made its way onto many nautical charts for centuries. Some say it might have been optical illusions, mirages, perhaps floating fog or distant cloud banks. But for early explorers navigating by compass and stars, seeing something land-like ahead only to get nothing when you approach, that kind of uncertainty breeds fear. Imagine approaching shore only to find the sea has turned blood red. That's what sailors and coastal villagers experienced during massive red tide events throughout history. Red tides are caused by algal blooms that release deadly toxins. In 1947, one of the worst red tides hit Florida, killing massive numbers of fish and causing respiratory distress in humans. Early explorers had no scientific explanation for why the ocean would suddenly turn scarlet and wipe out sea life overnight. Some described it as a biblical plague. The sight of the sea stained red and littered with dead fish was enough to terrify entire crews. Even today, red tides can poison seafood and cause economic disasters, proving these eerie anomalies are still a very real threat. On January 26, 1700, a massive tsunami slammed into the coast of Japan. Entire villages were destroyed, but the strangest part? There had been no earthquake in Japan to trigger it. Japanese records called it the Orphan Tsunami. For centuries, the cause remained a mystery. It wasn't until modern researchers studied tree rings and Native American oral histories in the Pacific Northwest that the answer was found. A massive magnitude 9 earthquake had struck the Cascadia subduction zone off North America's coast, sending a tsunami racing across the Pacific. Sailors dreaded crossing the waters between South America and Antarctica, and for good reason. The Drake Passage is home to some of the most violent seas on Earth. Explorers described waves not just rising up, but coming at them from multiple directions at once, creating an effect like upside-down walls of water. Ships were tossed like toys, and many never made it through. Charles Darwin himself nearly turned back when passing through on the HMS Beagle in 1833, noting how chaotic and terrifying the waters were. Even with modern ships, the Drake Passage remains a nightmare. For explorers centuries ago, the unpredictable mountainous waves seemed supernatural, as if the sea itself was trying to swallow them whole. Picture a glowing ship ablaze on the horizon, but when you sail towards it, it vanishes. Its screams fade in the wind. In an area between New Brunswick and Quebec in Canada, there is a phenomenon known as the Fireship, or the Phantom Ship. People report seeing an arc of light, like a flaming 3-mast ship, often during or before storms. They sometimes hear it described as though the burning ship has passengers whose cries are faintly audible in the wind or through water. Local legends are strong. In one version, the ship belonged to a captain involved in the slave trade who was killed and the ship cursed to burn forever. In scientific investigations, some claim it's natural gas or rotting vegetation releasing gases, or St. Elmo's fire, a form of plasma discharge in storms. For explorers or sailors who saw that light at dusk heading toward it, hoping rescue or safe harbor, or just trying to understand what they saw, only to feel something supernatural or malevolent, it left deep fear in the hearts of many. Because what looks like a real ship might not be, and what you think is real might be just a trick of nature. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I will see you again soon. Goodbye.